Welcome to WYNWOOD Magazine Podcast, the voice of culture and creativity, right here from the heart of Miami's art scene. I'm Susanna Baker, and we are diving in this episode into the visionary world of one of the most iconic artists. He is provocative and influential in his art. And before I say his name, I want to see if some of my listeners might guess who it is. Okay, he's known as the Godfather of Street Art. He's known for hijacking billboards with his satirical pop culture icons, as well as his surreal mishmash of art. He is cementing corporate imagery, parodying characters, serial characters, and mascots, fast food mascots. Anybody can guess? If you guess Ron English, pat yourself on the back on my behalf. Ron English, good morning, Ron.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm always great when I see you. You're coming in from your studio in New York, and I'm just excited. You know, we are a voice of culture and art and everything that's happening in the art world and design, architecture. And so we're honored to have you on the WYNWOOD Magazine Podcast. In 2024, we wrote an article on Delusionville, which are all your characters. But I want to dive right into asking you, you were dubbed the Godfather of Street Art. And I want to ask you, what was your first artistic rebellion? And how did that kind of shape your career path?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I was a little kid and I had a little sister and I was real proud of her and everything. And I gave her a piece of my art. She was in her crib and she ate it. And so I was mad at her. So I did a mural on the wall next to her crib. And then, to get her in trouble. And, of course, I would, my parents punished me and I couldn't figure out, like, how did they figure out she didn't do it, because I wrote her name and stuff. And so I think that was probably the first one.
Oh my God.
I was shocked that my parents was like, how did they know that I did it? It's like right there next to her crib. I put the crayons in her crib. It's like, what the hell? My parents are so smart.
Story. So Billboard Liberation became one of your signatures. And can you take us behind the scene and kind of tell me what was one of your most memorable billboards interventions that you did, a story that you'll never forget, something that really meant a lot to you?
Well, I started in Dallas, and my original crew were just kind of guys that, they were just kind of thuggy type of guys, I suppose. Because I remember one time I asked them all that I thought, that's really great that you guys want to, participate and you're into art. It's, you work at a factory, but yeah, look, you're into art. And they all look at me like funny, like, dude, we're not into art. We're into climbing on stuff and breaking the law. But yeah, we would do things like at that time I worked at a photography studio, and they actually had a wall in the back of the photography studio. It was a huge place. But there was the same size as all the billboards, exactly. I don't know why that was. So I said, hey, can I use that wall to paint these billboards? And then they would give me seamless backdrop paper, which was they would throw away once the models walked on it. Hey, it's no good anymore. So it's perfect. And that was the same size too, except it was a little short and it left 1 foot at the bottom of all the billboards. But I only went over cigarette ads back then because I thought, well, they got plenty of those and who needs more cigarette ads? And so anyway, I was cranking away on that stuff, but stuff always happens when you're breaking the law. And I originally started doing this stuff in the middle of the night, and I finally switched to the day because you're less likely to get arrested during the day. Where they say wear an orange vest, and you won't get arrested for anything. But I do remember one time I was doing one. It was like Frankenstein, and a lot of my stuff was just fun art stuff. And I hadn't never got into politics yet, but yeah, a helicopter, we were really high up and we were doing the billboard. It was kind of scary, I suppose. But a helicopter flew over and then they kind of flew back. And I think that they wanted to dip down and see what we were doing. And so they got so close it destroyed the billboard. It blew it all off. And they were trying to have a gander at what we were doing. But every time you do something like that, they shot our billboards with shotguns. Remember, it's Texas. So, but yeah, it was always some kind of adventure going out to do a billboard.
You are nationally and globally with your billboard interventions, and especially when it's a political year. I know how strong your convictions are in making this world better for our kids. And so my next question to you is, how do you use humor and satire with the serious political and social themes? How do you address that through the satire and humor that you use at the same time with the biting social commentary that you leave behind in your murals as well as in your billboards?
Well, I think first I'd like to say that how people always say, "Hey, I really want to change the world," and nobody ever says, "I really want to change the world for the worse." You know what I mean? That's just something I thought of, but I guess it's assumed, kind of like in Black Lives Matter, they left off one word. What was that word? That word was two. They would have had a lot less problems if they would have said Black Lives Matter also too. And that was implied, but a lot of people, they can't deal with that. But I always thought it's funny that everybody wants to change the world, and it's implied that we want to change the world for the better. But I would say that I do. And so you're creating a dialogue. Everything is a story. Everything is created from a story. And what do you do with your friends? You tell jokes with your friends. You can rib your friends, and they know it's in good humor, and they'll rib you back. And that's the kind of behavior you engage with your friends and your family. But you do not engage with that kind of behavior with your enemies. You don't, have a laugh with your enemies. So I think that if your art is sort of having a laugh, then everybody's going to perceive it as, this is our friend, and we can all have a sense of humor about this. We can have a different opinion, but we can also, because this kind of implies that we're friends, that we can all have a laugh together. And so it makes it more inclusive.
I do love that. And the sample is right behind me. I mean, right here, we have the famous face of, who, right? And she's rich body, so it's kind of humorous. But then again, you have Temper Tot here that's actually saying, let me grab him, I want a piece of him. And then you have here Street Fighter who's saying, no, I'm going to punch him out. You have the Statue of Liberty here, saying, hey, freedom for all, give me your liberty. And she's got the grin on, like it's this is Ron English, this is what you're all about. And see, you did much of your work critiques consumer culture as well as pop media. What made you go into remixing fast food mascots and, like Ronald McDonald, and also the cultural icons like Mickey Mouse? What made you say, okay, I'm going to go and,
well, first off, like all the serial characters were created to talk to children, and they gave them certain personalities. And so I just thought I would kind of expand their personalities, because it's not like, these icons of the cereal world are, consumers of the food, because they would have a different body type if they had done that. So I was kind of trying to play with the idea of, if these characters actually ate the food that they're promoting, this is what they would look like. And that all started with Ronald McDonald. And it actually really started with the Marble Man, because, remember back when I was doing all those billboards in Texas, and I was mostly going over cigarette ads. Well, I went over tons of Marble ads, so I became very aware of, their campaign. And then I came to realize that the original Marble Man, or the second Marble Man, the first one died of lung cancer, actually had to be in an iron lung. And the second one, they forbade him from smoking. So part of his contract that he wasn't allowed to smoke in his private life, because they didn't want, another Marble Man with lung cancer. But so I thought it's kind of interesting that the promoters of products like Ronald McDonald, they don't imply that in real life, the guy that played Ronald McDonald was not allowed to eat the food, because they don't need him getting fat. He's supposed to be fit and healthy, and it's supposed to be promoting a healthy lifestyle. So, advertising has billions of dollars to spend. They're telling a story. They're telling a story about how great their product is. Now, there's another side to this story, but there's no money to tell that story, and there's no community to tell that story. So I sort of made that my little mission to, answer them back and give the other side of the story.
Yeah, and honestly, I think he gave the movement for organic and green and vegan. I mean, because you've been telling that story you've been trailblazing for decades with the stories. And, also the culture jamming that you're known for doing. Do you consider NC Supersize and the Abraham Obama that you did, would you consider them, it's become a big part of the visual culture. Would you consider them modern myths or anti-heroes?
I think it's just the thing for people to hook onto that kind of tells the story very succinctly and quickly, and kind of helps people understand things in a certain way. But I think that the Abraham Obama thing, I came up with very quickly because we were working for the campaign, and they asked us on a Tuesday to have something, ready to roll on Friday. So I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, which, as an artist, sometimes it's good not to think about too much and just let your instincts tell you what to do. But it's also, here's a little sad thing. We were working for the Kamala Harris campaign, and so we did some posters, and we did a block of posters. We were going around Philly putting up posters. And so here's all my posters on the street. They get vandalized. They cut the eyes out, which traditionally that means you want to kill the person. But I don't think that the people who are doing that today that realize what that means. But anyway, the posters got vandalized. Then they got photographed by an AP photographer. And then they became the image of the fall of the Democratic Party. So sometimes it, goes against you. But yeah, so we were like one of the icons of the Obama campaign. And then we were also one of the icons of the destruction of the Democratic Party. So.
I was with you when they came out hot off the presses, the Cal posters. And we were actually week pasting them in New York. And I remember somebody in a car started to beep and go, hey, Ron. And you didn't turn around. And I said, oh, you look like you have a lot of friends. He goes, yeah, but, they don't realize I could get in trouble. This is not legal, and I forgot because I was there with you, just week pasting away and super happy that we were doing the right thing. And then I didn't even think how, because I'm so used to being in WYNWOOD and seeing everybody tag and week paste. But we're very fortunate that in WYNWOOD, you mostly get away with it, even though now you need permits. How has it been, moving forward? Like, you've done so many mediums, you've done the vinyl toys, you've done propaganda, and let's talk about propaganda. When did you decide to go from your billboards, your amazing, your oil mastery and paintings are amazing, your amazing palette of bold colors, for your murals, tempered tot. You were one of the first also spray paint, not just the wall, but the street as well, and make it into one. How did you decide to go into vinyl toys, which are not just
vinyl toys? Well, in my work, there were a lot of unique characters. I was making fun of a lot of characters from pop culture, but I also had my own my own collection of characters. So I think that when that culture started, I got into that very quickly. Weirdly, I was actually in the culture just before the culture started through Dark Horse. So I had a character, Ronnie Rabbit, and they were doing ashtrays and all kinds of knickknacks, and that was kind of part of their and so they took Ronnie Rabbit, and actually they ended up getting a distribution deal with I don't know if you remember, Tower Records. So it wasn't like a limited edition of 1,000 or 100. It was it was mass produced at that point. But then the next toy after that was MC Supersize, and that was my first participation in the vinyl culture.
Right. Now, when you license, do you keep part of the licensing, or you have to give your rights away, or
Oh no, you don't give your rights away. No.
You don't give your rights. Intellectual property stays with you always. So you didn't lose Ronnie Rabbit to Tower Records.
No, you do a license deal just the same way Disney does. They license or Kiss. Kiss is a big licensor, so you can buy a Kiss license to do. Oh well, like usually it's narrow. So like remember Pop? I mean, of course they're still around, but that was like one of the biggest plays in the toy industry ever, and it was a very simple play in a way because these two guys had a bobblehead company, and then they had all these licenses, so they could do Fred Flintstone, and they could do Mickey Mouse, and they could do the Jetsons, or whatever, all these famous pop icons, and they produced them as these little bobbleheads, which meant they had this very narrow license to do that. They couldn't put them on plates, they couldn't put them on T-shirts. They'd only had a very narrow license to do the bobbleheads. But the company was bought out by a friend of mine, Brian, for, believe it or not, $80,000, because they were just running out of their garage. But he realized they had all these licenses, and then instead of making them bobbleheads, which were kind of highly unfashionable at that point, he would just take that same license that allowed you to make it. Didn't specifically say bobblehead; it said like a figure of this size. So he took that license that they as part of the company, and then he made the head bigger, and he made the eyes just far enough that it kind of registers in your brain as, oh, that's cute, that's a baby, I gotta love that baby. It's like very primal, and it worked. And he blew that that $80,000 company up into a $1 billion company over about 7 years. And so he was able to take all these licenses, these narrow licenses, and then expand upon them and do something that unexpected with them.
Wow.
So he saw the goal point when nobody else did. So when we do a license, if I do a license to do T-shirts, it's restricted to a year, or everything's kind of put out in a contract. So you can have like 1,000 licenses on one character.
One character. Well, I'm sure, your mind never stops. I was very privileged to be in your studio and just to see, because a lot of people, let me ask you, one thing that maybe a lot of people don't know about Lonnie, what would be that one thing you would like them to know about you?
About me?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that, speaking of the licenses, I have developed 200 characters. I have a couple hundred songs that kind of sung from the point of views of these characters. So basically what I've been working on for the last 25 years is developing this giant IP that includes all these characters, the music, the storylines, and also this giant installation I've been working on for 25 years, which maybe for the first time ever might be shown by Jessica, not this year but next year. I'm talking about WYNWOOD Walls, but I shouldn't have said that. That's nothing's been resolved about that. But the idea is that at some point, I'll sell the whole thing, and then that'll be the end when I think I'm going to check out. Okay, so but then basically I've created the same amount of characters as Disney with the backstories. So somebody's going to be able to buy like a whole IP that's as big as Disney, and then that's like a huge thing for an investor because they can exploit it for the next 100 years. But that's my big project that I've been working on. So I don't know if a lot of people can kind of see that's what I'm doing.
Is that going to be on canvas or on wall?
No, that's like I have my own Disney.
Oh wow!
I have more developed characters than Disney does, but they haven't been exploited as much as obviously as Disney, and they haven't been invested in it as much. But it's kind of like if somebody comes to me, they're usually pretty surprised that like, hey, all those sayings are my sayings, all those songs are my songs, all those characters are my characters. And I think a lot of people don't understand that because they think, well, you would be a nightmare because, you're using other people's quotes, you're using other people's songs, you're using other people's characters. Like, you would be a nightmare to work with. And then the second that they realize that you own all this stuff, that you're one-stop shopping, then the idea clicks. It's like, okay, wow, we can do a lot of this guy.
No. Yeah, and that's one of the things I would like the listeners to know, that outside of being the most amazing, influential artist, and not only from the fine arts to the street murals, the monumental murals, your amazing characters from Delusionville, your Temper Tot, your MC Supersize, your serial killers, but you're also you're a composer, a music composer. You're an amazing videographer, graphic illustrations that I blows me away. I'm like, do you take LSD before you do one? It's like it morphs into one character to the other. And of course, no, I'm not saying that anyone does drugs here, but when I'm looking at one of your videos, it is so high definition. How you morph from one face to an animal's tail to a cage to a dove to like all these. This is before AI. You're doing this before AI.
Right. Yeah. Well, but I was just doing stop animation. I have all these sets. You've been to my studio, and I have all these characters, and I sculpt them in a 3D program, and then I print them so I could print them in different poses. I can sometimes I animate them in the computer, so I have like legit animation. So I mix all that stuff together to build those videos, and those videos are in service of the songs. But yeah, so basically it was stop animation, I suppose, just mixed in with some other stuff. Yeah, but there's more and more tools every day. Okay, one of my favorite animation companies is Titmouse. They're huge. And they do like most of the shows you love. But by this time next year, I could do everything that they do from my basement. It's going to be crazy. Right? We have one coming out next week. So now I'm starting to actually tell the story so people understand it better. I have a lot more fun making the songs than I do telling the stories. It's a bit of work for me to tell the stories, but I'll tell the story of the original Gray Wolf. And so I was able to do it by writing all the text and then using AI to do his voice. And then another guy comes in and talks one of the other characters, and I create an AI voice for him. So now in my archives, I have the same voice. I can recreate the same voice in all the characters. They're not, you can't use any kind of AI and stabilize a character. But again, within a year, you'll be able to use all this technology. And if you can stabilize a character, then you can start creating your own cartoons, because the character has to always be the same, and it can't do that yet. But I still think maybe, we might be a month away from doing it, but we're definitely a year away from doing it. So I don't know. It's crazy times, but very exciting.
I'm going to ask you, how has AI helped you in your creative process? How do you use it? And you just answered that, because before you would have to hire different voices or make up different voices by muffling your own, or having your wife or a kid or whatever, and everybody come in and make the different voice of the character, different characters. Now you can actually use AI to create the voice for that character.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's kind of like, I've always had, for years, I worked with Joe Johnson writing songs, and we would get up at 5 o'clock every morning, and we would, before everybody else got up, we would already have a song written. So we'd go back and forth, and he would I don't like that melody, let's change that. But it's like you're collaborating with somebody. But I think working with AI is interesting, because the first stuff I tried to do with ChatGPT, I've never yet done anything with it except talk to it. And it kind of gets me well, that's not what that's not how I want to say it. That's a very common way to say it, because all it does is think of it. It's just like an ocean. It takes everybody's stuff. If you say, hey, write another Shakespeare piece, it can't. It can only remix old Shakespeare stuff. And who was Shakespeare? He was a guy that constantly came up with new concepts and new ways of saying things. So it can't be creative like him, but it can remix his old stuff. So then you get frustrated with it, because you realize, look, I'm trying to get this. And then it kind of makes you realize that you are more creative than the computers. They're only remixers. But it stimulates you to say, this is what I wanted, and it won't give it to you. But then it kind of focuses what you want, so it's a good collaborator, because you can just dismiss everything it does, where with a real collaborator, come on, man, leave my guitar part in there. You know what I mean? So I find it, kind of get you stimulated. And so far that's how I've been able to use it. But I don't know. I mean, things are changing so fast. It's getting weird.
It's kind of scary to say the word stimulating to on English. I think you created stimulation with so many things that you have done and the culture generally. You were also one of the first artists to go into NFTs. How is that doing for you? Because I see Vivi up there.
Yeah, I think the whole NFT kind of thing imploded, and Vivi was there before the NFT thing. They were just starting before the NFT thing, and they never called themselves NFT. They NFTs. They never called themselves digital. They call themselves digital collectibles, not NFTs. And they they put themselves on a very small blockchain, so it's all secure imagery that you own and you can trade. There's no reason, to trade a digital toy and use a million computers to do it. You're just gobbling up electricity. So they got it down to like it's you're not damaging the environment. You're not, so it's safe for the environment. And they've continued on, and we've had a lot of success with them. We've also been able to tell our story as I'm an independent creator. A lot of these kids that come onto the platform, they're young. They like Marvel. They like DC. They like Disney. They like Pokemon. They don't know what an independent creator is, because DC is not an independent creator. They have thousands of creators, and they're a big conglomeration. But it's like with me, it's like they're just licensing stuff from Disney. Disney probably didn't even know they're doing it. But with me, it's like I talk to them. They watch me create. If you support my songs, you're supporting my whole operation. I'm one guy, So it's a very different thing, and they're kind of learning about that. And just as an aside, like that community, they're kids, and they think they're going to get rich off trading this stuff, and then some are fans of the stuff. But they weren't political at all. And so when the Ukraine thing happened, I was building this jukebox to play my records on their platform. And we've been working on it for a couple of years because it's new tech, and I have the idea, but some other guys have to work on it. Well, it turned out it was 8 guys from the Ukraine, and suddenly they were just MIA because they had to go fight in the war. And then I called up David Yu, and I said, well, we should help somehow. And now he's going to be bigger than Disney someday, I estimate. And so he can't really be that involved in politics. If you're running a big company, you have to just, you can't. But he says, okay, well, I got an idea. And this is David talking. He goes, why don't we give it to the Red Cross? Because, whether you love Putin and you think he should invade every country in the world, or you're trying to defend the Ukrainians, these families were exiting the country to get out of the war zone. People were sending their wives and kids out, and then they would cross the border, and then it's nothing. They didn't know what to do, and a lot of them didn't know anywhere to go. So the Red Cross just feeds people and gives them some clothes. It just helps them out a little bit along the way. And so I asked him let's do a thing. And so we did a sunflower, and we released it, the Ukrainian sunflower, with our colors. And it made $1 million in 0.2 of 1 second.
What?
From this fan base. We use the fan base. And so now the fan base, I don't think they just thought we're going to buy it, it'll be worth more money, or they think weird stuff. But I was telling the kids, it's like, now we've done something. We've helped people. When you watch the TV and you see somebody cross that border and somebody hands them a sandwich and a coat, that's you, man. You help, And, and you kind of stayed out of politics because, maybe you're not old enough or mature enough to understand what's actually going on. But you helped, and it's kind of a neutral zone to exist in, but you helped, and you did something great. And it's not about, can we make more money off these collectibles by flipping them? This time we pulled our community together, and it's a crazy community. It's huge, and they're very loyal to the BB thing. Yeah, we all came together and do something, and maybe we can continue to behave that way. Yeah, we can buy our collectibles; they become worth more. You flip them, you make some money. It's a lot of fun, but it's also we can help, And I try to instill that in young people. It's like, you don't have to be some crazy political activist and risk your life or anything, but do something locally. Just think, this is my society, and I help.
They basically, you do something, and the proceeds of sale, the percentage goes back to a charity.
Right. I mean, that better than anybody. I mean, that's who you are. You're somebody that's always ready to help.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot coming from you.
Yeah, I noticed that. But it's great, right? And it feels good. And
servitude is what we're here for sure. At least that's how I feel. My life is purpose-filled when I give and don't expect anything back. That's the most important thing. We're running out of time, and one last question to you is, if you could paint one message on every single wall across America, what would that message be? Take your moment.
We are one. I don't know. I'm right now. I'm trying to come up with a way to bring us all back together, and we are working on a project. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about it or not. I never know what, because sometimes you sign an NDA or something. But yeah, we're working on a project to bring everybody together and involve a lot of, famous people and make it like apolitical. It's like, I want to talk to my brother again. We've all been fighting. We got antagonized by Russian propagandists, and that really happened, and AI and all this other stuff. And we kind of got at odds at each other but I think that the project of America and us all being brothers and sisters is bigger than any tiny little fight, and I think we let the little fights eclipse who we're supposed to be. So somehow I would have to come up with something that says, come together.
Did you figure out what image would represent something of what you're wanting to tag and say?
Wow, I wasn't ready for this. Yes, I do need to come up with something. I'll have something by tomorrow. Yeah, I'm writing a song, and I'm getting a whole bunch of people to kind of gang vocal on it. And so we work with a recording studio, Buffalo Stack down the street. So like on Friday, I'm bringing in the local choir. And so I just said, look, everybody that comes through your studio and records at your studio, just ask them would they, throw in on this song. So it'll be kind of like a We Are the World thing, but it's for a project for the guy leading the project is Leonard Sotomayor, who used to have Global Beat Records. And I think it's really his idea that, we got to bring people together. This infighting is not helping,
Yeah.
And it's not fun, not having your cousin or your brother in your life anymore because of,
Because
politics, because we all kind of really want the same thing.
well, the division is great, and we had to, strength is found in unity, and we had to have a united front. And it's time for us to really see what's important, and our land and our brotherhood. I think that's what makes everything, back to some normality is so important. And I have to tell you, coming from Ron English, our time has ran out. We're going to definitely do part 2. What a journey into the mind of the amazing, true visionary Ron English. I mean, from pop culture subversion to monumental murals. Ron English, you continue to challenge how we see the world, one brushstroke at a time, one composition note at a time. You are so committed to having our children's children view the world in their culture, in other people's culture, by jamming it. There's always a message that you want to bring across, which is a wholesome, healthy, having your heroes, but having your feet on the ground. And one thing I want everybody to know about Ron English is he's an amazing family man. So for young artists out there that think that they can't have a family and a career, you can. And I would definitely have you continue to see if you're an art enthusiast, if you are, die-hard groupie like someone I know in this room, you're going to want to follow Ron English. And Ron, we're going to do part 2 soon. And thank you, my brother. I love you. And blessings to your family. And I can't wait to hear all the stories on part 2.
Well, I can't thank you enough. And thank you for all you do. We appreciate that here.
Thank you, Ron. I love you. God bless you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.